1. All right, we have Kevin Sherman, former city council president, El Presidente, and he's back and he's running now. Kevin, you're running for Ward 3. Awesome.
Yeah, not back yet. Got to take out papers and run a campaign and get elected. But yeah, threw our hat in the ring last week. Good to see you, by the way, John. It's been a
Nice
long
to
time.
see you.
It's good to see human beings, right? Yeah, it's so, you know, a couple weeks ago, we saw Nick Kakamo, Councilor Kakamo, announce that he wasn't going to run in Ward 3, and Nick did a great job for Ward 3. And there's been a long history of great ward councilors in Ward 3. So when Nick got out, I didn't have any intentions of running for office at that point. But then once that happened, I thought, well, what the heck? So I ran it by my children, my wife, and they were over the moon on board and looking to help out and get rolling. So we decided, what do we got to lose? Let's put our name out there, say we're, you know, let people know that we're thinking about this. You know, the passion I have for this city still runs deep. I've been off the council for 8 years, doing various other volunteer activities within the city, and kids are growing up now. And, you know, this year coming up, John, we've got a rebuilding process for sure. Everybody does. And I think that I know that I have the ability and the experience and some skill set to help assist in that. And it's really all hands on deck, you know, going forward if we want to get Pittsfield where it needs to be. So time to ante up and kick in. And that's what I plan to do.
And you come from a family legacy of service, no doubt. And of course, everyone certainly respected Mayor Del Gallo. And so tell me about that. And I remember we had a conversation when you decided not to run again. At one point, he was disappointed. You know, he wanted you back in it. So tell me what that means to you with your family and your legacy.
Yeah, so my great uncle, he's my grandfather's brother, is Ramos. So my great uncle Ray Del Gallo meant the world to me. That's where I learned, excuse me, about politics. Sitting at Del Gallo's, listening to him and my grandfather debate and argue and do whatever it took. But then they would calmly have a beer afterwards, and there was no issues there. So Ray was a big part of my inspiration of getting into politics, that and my love of history and so forth. But yeah, when I got out the first time, I don't know if Ray doesn't get mad or disappointed. He just says, is it the right move for your family? And I said, yes. They said, then it's the right move. That's all Ray cares about, is doing the right moves. And that's why he was a gentleman to the end. I learned so much from him, John, and I always think about the city of Pittsfield when we're trying to move forward with things. And as you know, there's always an element of opposition and let's not do things. And Ray used to say, I'd say, Ray, here's a proposal on the table. What are your thoughts on it? He'd say, you have $1 million, Kevin? I'd say, no, I don't. Then let them do it. Let them invest. Let folks invest. So, you know, he had a ton of great sayings. He would always say to me, don't trade your old friends for new ones. Forgive a little, forget never. Don't write when you can talk. Don't talk when you can nod. Don't nod when you can wink. It's my all-time favorite. He never said a bad word about anybody. He'd say, Uncle Ray, what do you think about so-and-so? That was the worst thing he ever said. Because he just knew better, and he respected people. One of my favorite Uncle Ray stories is when he and his 3 brothers and their sister were all in World War II at the same time, serving. And they came back home and they experienced Italian prejudice. And I'm not going to say where, but it was at a place where it shouldn't have been. There shouldn't have been prejudice against Italians after what they had just done for the country. And they were told that they weren't allowed in that facility. So years later, the person who ran the facility came to then Councilor Gallo asking for a favor, and he said, absolutely no problem, whatever you need. Now Bertha said, what are you doing? This guy was awful to the Italians over the last several years. And he said, we never will be again. And that's how it works. And you move forward and you move on. So Ray meant a great deal to me. I miss him badly. I keep waiting for him to call. I keep waiting to want to call him and ask him his advice, but hopefully the legacy that he's passed on to me, I can carry on, because he was the epitome of a gentleman, of a consensus builder, of understanding progress, of understanding that progress didn't mean we were getting rid of the past. It meant we were just improving and moving on and evolving, and that's okay.
And you forgot one saying, and Kevin Sherman, maybe you picked up the saying, and so now it's a Kevin Sherman-ism, and that is, I'd rather be right than consistent.
Oh, no, I stole that from Tip O'Neill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd rather be right than consistent. The other, I thought you were going to go, I did forget one from Rado, which is probably the best one, which is help everyone as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, is what he used to always say. But yeah, Tip O'Neill, I'd rather be right than consistent. He voted the same way for 15 consecutive years. And then he changed his mind one time and someone said, what are you doing? You voted the same way for 15 years. And he said, yeah, and now I learned the truth. So I'd rather be right than consistent.
Yeah.
So that's one of my all-time favorites, John. Works in every aspect of life too.
It really does. I mean, because especially as elected officials coming in with new information. And I think that goes and we were on the council at a time when it was also it became very contentious, and you saw that evolution when you were on the council, and it shifted. Now there's a certain dynamic to it, and being able to rise above means you have to look at things pragmatically and understand that the proposal and what's before you has a certain value to it, and it shouldn't simply be tied to the person who is proposing it, which is a big deal.
No, absolutely. It's based on the merits, and I don't care who gets credit as long as it's the right thing to do. And while we're stealing lines from people, Mike Ward used to say, you don't vote 51%, you vote yes or no. So it could be that we're not all in on a position, but if most of the way there, then we've got to make a decision. We've got to vote yes or no and see what we do with that. So I'm a strong proponent of that as well, of moving on, of let's make a decision. And if you win the vote, great. If you lose the vote, too bad. And then come back to the table if you're passionate about it, and we'll figure it out. But yeah, it comes down to the merits of what's being discussed. It comes down to being respectful to having that level of understanding that nothing's ever going to be unanimous, ever. I think we saw when we were on there, the scoreboard trying to be put up at Deming Park, free of charge to the public, caused about a 5-hour meeting because of various concerns. And I remember saying to myself, if we can't get a free scoreboard for 12-year-olds, unanimous, what can we get? And I understood I get the arguments on the other side, but at the time I'm thinking, geez, that seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
So that taught me actually make sure the devil's in the details and everything's thought through, and because there is always going to be an element of folks on another side, and that's okay. It's okay to have that conversation as long as you can articulate it in a respectful manner, and try to move forward. That's all.
And Ward 3, so you were at-large councilor before. I look at if there's a ward for Kevin Sherman, I would say Ward 3 is the not just because you live there, but there is a history to Ward 3. There is a dynamic there, the Lakewood neighborhood and so on. So and Ward 3 has shifted a little bit as you were on the council back in the day when we did some shifting, because every 10 years we have to sort of realign. But tell me about this ward and representing it potentially in the future.
Yeah, so I grew up on the north end of town on Crane Avenue, so I have an affection for the north end. But I've been living here in Ward 3 for the last 15 years, and with my family, and we love it. Ward 3, I think, is a very kind of what the other wards are somewhat similar, but Ward 3 is very diverse and dynamic. So you've got businesses, you've got long stretches of businesses, you've got neighborhood businesses, so you've got neighbors next to businesses, and there's a dynamic there. There's ball fields, there's rental properties, there's single family homes that are still being built, there's the apple orchards, there's just a wide variety of individuals and real estate really in Ward 3. And Councilor Capitano, Councilor Tyre, then Councilor Tyre, Councilor Cacamo, the three councilors who come before me, have done a great job of representing really the diversity of this ward. It's becoming more and more diverse every day, but we've got the Egremont Elementary School where my children went to, and you can see the changes there, and the good work they do at that school. So I try to walk twice. I know it doesn't look it. I try to walk a couple times a weekend. I go up to Dunkin' Donuts, and I love walking through that Elm Street corridor.
You look great, by the way. You look great.
I told you before the meeting, I've grown to an 8 head from my forehead. That's from coaching youth sports. But I love walking that corridor of the Elm Street, because there's the neighborhood stores are kind of not in vogue anymore, and Ward 3 still has a lot of it. from the East Side Cafe, which is just legendary, to
Mhm.
Elm Street Hardware, all these places that are still thriving despite outside influences, despite the growth of the city, and that's a part that you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
At the same time, they understand the evolution of the city, and you want to be able to help them as it grows, and not hurt them. So
Yeah, I mean, I just had this conversation recently in a sort of city, planning and visioning piece by my friend Nick Russo over a Zoom. We were having this conversation, and those corner markets, those small, to me, I think we need to treat those like endangered species. I mean, with all due respect, just to be like, look, it takes special consideration, and we should take and pay special attention to make sure that they're able to succeed, in my opinion.
I agree, because in most of those cases, those are family-owned businesses that have invested in the city for year after year after year. They've seen it go through all the changes that it's gone through, and they continue to stick it out with the city because they love it. And not only are they operating a great business, but they all give back to the community in one way or another, whether it's through youth sports fundraising, or anytime someone goes with a hat in their hand, these places are the ones that are the first ones to give a donation or in-kind donation, or whatever the case may be. And they've just toiled with their families for generations, and they're unique. And it's what makes a city like Pittsfield unique, that it's not just mini malls and everything that you see kind of in newer cities. That's also the challenge with our city, though, right? Is we have buildings that are becoming abandoned because they were once businesses, and folks have moved on. And the cost effectiveness of renovating these things have been not great for the city. And that's more on a state level, John, as you know, but these are the types of things that keep me up at night.
Yeah.
If something goes out of business, what are we going to do with it? What can the city do? I mean, the city can't just buy stuff and make stuff. I hate when people, how can the city
if people knew the financial acrobatics that need to be done in order to make one of those new market rate housing developments happen, and to find a way to say, you know what, eventually the developer will make a profit, like years from now, and it won't be that big, because we're in this position where Pittsfield is a lower cost of living. And so but construction isn't less expensive, so you have these two these two factors that are opposing, making it difficult to create housing in this kind of scale that we need. And that's just in the housing, never mind retail or the other kinds of businesses.
And the idea is attracting people to invest in the city. We're seeing some great things from the Milltown Capital Group,
absolutely,
things that they're doing, which 100%. Like I said at the beginning, do you have $1 million, Kevin? No, I don't, Uncle Ray. Then let them do it.
Yep.
If they have it, if it's within, we're not saying build a casino on Park Square. Although I have some friends who probably would like that. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we need people to be enticed to invest in our city, and we're going to be changing. We have been changing. We've been, kind of slow to the party on it, but coming out of this pandemic, we're going to see a lot more work from home action. And if folks can work from home and live in a place like the Berkshires, we need to make it worth their while. We need to have the housing stock for them to be at. We need to have the schools for them to send their children to. We need to have the safe streets, the equality, all the things. Everybody wants the same things. I mean, these aren't secrets. This is what we all want, is quality of life. And we need population. We need our merchants need customers. Our customers need somewhere to go. It really fits hand in glove. So, and if you're coming to a city that has a government that is chasing itself and really not operating at a full respectful capacity, that's not a good look. And folks, I don't know how many of these individuals watch PCTV. Hopefully all of them, to the good people at PCTV. But I don't know how many are tuned into that, but they read the paper, they see what's happening, and when they come to the city, if they're not greeted with solutions and greeted with open arms, frankly, that's not a good look. At the same time, we can do two things at once. We can do that and take care of our current business owners at the same time. It's not an either or. It's got to be in both, because as we just talked about, the uniqueness and the character of the city is why I love it. It's why a lot of us love it. We have great memories of a lot of things, and we want to retain those. We can do that and grow. There's no reason why we can't do two things at once.
Absolutely. And, we've kind of seen those sort of either or conversations that aren't necessarily valid. Are we going to be a manufacturing town or a cultural town? We can be both. As an example, can we have good code enforcement but also be business friendly? I think we can, as an example, and so forth and on and on. So there's a lot happening in our community. We can do a lot of things.
And the greatest resource, I mean, outside of the mountains and where we are culturally or just environmentally, is the people of Pittsfield are its greatest resource. The community involvement that we've always had. I've had the pleasure of really working with the Pittsfield Girls Softball League for the last several years as president for a couple of years, and we ran some tournaments at the Doyle Complex. And the volunteerism there is off the charts. And these people just give and give and give of their time, not only for the kids, but for the facility up there. And they take great care of that facility. And the sheriff's department comes down and mows it, and they do a phenomenal job. Bruce Kraskowski and Sheriff Fuller, hats off to them for allowing that to happen. But these tournaments we ran, John, the out-of-town people talking about they want to move to Pittsfield because of the park we have there. Which is sometimes we don't understand what we have. It is a state-of-the-art. No one has the facility we do. No one has 2 lit fields. We have 5 now because we converted the lower field into a mixed-use Little League and softball field. But I'm telling you, people from New Hampshire, Vermont, wherever, they just, when can we sign up for your next tournament? We love it that much. And Tom Murphy, everybody that came before me that set it up, I didn't build those fields. Someone else had to build them. They didn't just drop from the sky and they were there. People put a lot of time and effort into creating that. And I think that's what people lose sight of growing up. I think we think everything was just here when we were born, right? Everything just happened, and it didn't take work or discussion or conversation or compromise to get things accomplished. And that's what it takes.
And I think softball is a perfect example of that, because you can literally look at that initial thrust, and going back, actually probably 15 years ago, I think, maybe longer.
About 20 years ago.
Yeah, about 20 years ago. And I remember Jim Stimpson pushing hard and getting the World Series, thing. And that is a little bustling part of our economy, when they have these big tournaments and people come in and they fill hotel rooms and so on and so forth. So
we had 100 families here for 3 days, 100 families, not this is 100 hotel rooms and restaurant and eating out and going to sporting goods stores to whatever they have to do to fix a glove or whatever I'm trying to say. But food wise, we had vendors there. But the good thing too, you go up there and you see the scoreboard donated by Unico. The blockhouse, the concession stand, Chris Porter donated. Just the generosity of this community, it knows no bounds if you do it right and if you work together on things. So, and it is, to me, it's an economic development piece when for 3 straight weekends you're bringing that amount of people into town to eat at the restaurants, to buy locally, to stay at the hotels, pay the tax on the hotel that we put in. Whatever we wanted to call that at the time.
Hey, I remember that.
Yeah, that was up for debate. I supported it, absolutely.
I did too.
We're not as bad as Cape Cod or any of those places. We just need a little bit more. Between that and I also have been coaching a lot at the Boys and Girls Club, and there's another place that, frankly, I hope we don't take it for granted, because without the Boys and Girls Club of the Berkshires, I don't know where these kids go. I don't know how our youth grows up. And we had the CYC and the Boys and Girls Club. We were spoiled growing up, John. Now it's the Boys and Girls Club, and Joe McGovern and Dan Jocelyn just do a phenomenal job of welcoming and growing that place. And it's a jewel for this community. And I think we take things for granted like that. Like it's just going to be there. It was there when I was born, so it's going to be there when I'm gone. And it's not the case. It takes work. It takes volunteers. It takes employees. It takes it takes a community. And that's what I love best about Pittsfield. I always have, and I know we still have it in us. And I don't think there's anything. We've got challenges for sure, but we've got opportunities that we need to leverage as we go forward.
I think we do too, and I'm glad you're back in the arena, Kevin. Former council president, former at large, former aide to Chris Hodgkins way back in the day. I mean, it was so funny because the first time I was a reporter, and I remember talking to you again after we knew each other, and you were back in the fray, and it's like, this is our home, and at the time, you were working in Boston and we're coming back, and I was kind of doing the same, a lot of times our generation, there are people from our classes who, went off and wanted to get away. But then many of them came back because, they realize, hey, the grass is greener. And when it comes down to it, man, we have a lot here.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Chris. My first job out of college, Chris Hodgkins took a shot on me and was just a tremendous mentor. Taught me so much. He had so much passion. What he taught me the most was you respond to people. So at the end of every day, I would take the list of people who called us, and I would bring that to his house and put it on his desk. And we would call everybody back within 24 hours, whether we had a solution to their problem or not. And I've carried that throughout my professional career everywhere I've gone. It's that simple. You get back to people, you respond to people. And I think that's what I'm excited most about running for Ward 3, is being able to work with my neighbors and friends, and I know it's going to be a lot. You were a ward councilor, you understand the demands of that,
Sure.
of snow shoveling and sidewalks and potholes and all of that. And I actually love it. I want to solve problems. I want to help these folks. I also know you're only as good as your last pothole. If I get it filled 9 out of 10 times, that 10th time I'm in trouble. So you try to do it all perfectly. But Chris taught me the value of empathy, of understanding that if folks are calling a state representative's office, they've tried everywhere else. They've tried to get everything done, and that resonated with me when I was just starting out. Is the empathy that he had for anyone who called, and he would help anybody. So I do miss him. We talked a few weeks ago. He's still as vibrant and charismatic as ever. I could never be as charismatic. I wish. I tried once. I saw him give speeches, and he was great and had people cheering and going nuts, and he never had anything written down. I thought I could do that. And I gave the worst speech you ever heard in your life. And afterwards he said, great job. Next time, write the thing down. I'll never forget that either. So always write it down, John.
At least write it down first. If you can memorize it, well. Oh, Kevin Sherman, man, it's good to see you. And hopefully at some point soon, we're all going to be able to meet out and be in public and do it comfortably. I'm hoping that's the case, and hopefully you'll be able to run a campaign that's a little bit more traditional than how it would have been last year. So because I think the voters deserve that, the face-to-face interaction. But and I know you'll be out there. So
I'm looking forward to seeing them, seeing what's on their minds and everything else. Appreciate you taking the time with me today, John. It is good to see you, and certainly, like everybody else, looking forward to just seeing people and just being normal again. Can't wait.
Absolutely. So Kevin, we'll see you down the road, my friend.
All right, bud. Take it easy, John. Thank you.
Thank you.